Hi guys, I found another photo album and I'm flicking through it. You swear to God this is all I ever did, flicking through photo albums. Yeah, I still can't find a picture of that Belarus. It was a sandy coloured Belarus. Anyway, that's beside the point. This is part 3 of the farm gerangh. Michael Ford or Mick Ford, they have a savage open farm below in gerangh, halfway between Mallow and Blarney on the Cork Mallow Road. It's halfway, it's closer to Mallow than it is to Cork. It's an open farm. It's a brilliant place to bring the kids. It's a brilliant place to bring absolutely everyone. I would highly recommend it. They have a working day once a year there, and this is part 3 of a DVD I got off Michael Ford. The complete DVD, I've cut out some bits, edited out bits of the complete DVD is available below. You can get it in their shop. They have a savage cafe. They have a big event center. If you want to have an event there, they have a big hall. Even hold weddings there, as far as I know. But look it up. Look it up on Facebook. The Farm gerangh. All right. Here's part 3. Enjoy.
Now we'll take a look at some different brands of combines. Here we have a Dania 900, also known as Dranningberg. The 900 first appeared in 1963. They were a very popular combine harvester in Ireland, as were the smaller versions, which were trail models of the D500 and the D600. A lot of the combines were a combination of tanker and bagger units, which give you the option of either bagging off the grain or using the tanker. They had a very good cleaning system and were ideal for seed crops or for brewers' grains as well. Then a Perkins 300 engine. The bigger brother was the Dania 1200, which was out in 1969. This, as you can see, was a more streamlined combine harvester. It had higher capacity and had a Perkins 75 horsepower engine. There's the Massey 892. These combines were pretty rare. This Dania was found to be in very rusty condition. Some panels have rusted away when we found it in 2005, and we spent a good few years rebuilding up the combine and getting it working, and she's going pretty good today, and we have harvested a lot of grain with it over the last 10 or 15 years. They had a hydraulic reel. Speed was infinitely variable, driven by hydraulic motor. Very few of these massive Ferguson 892 combines were built in France, and very few would survive today. We need a bit of skill now to get in here, as trailers were not so high back in the 1960s. Engaging the auger for emptying the tank. These were very high output augers. You wouldn't be long emptying a tank of grain at that speed. Here we have the Massey 520, which was a sister of the 525 and the 625 combine. This combine was bought new in 1978. Massey 187 from 1969. You can see how Massey Ferguson kept the centre of gravity of their combines down low so they could be used on hilly ground. This was achieved by using saddle tanks for carting the grain. Here we have sling oats in an evening in mid-September. Here we have the Clayson 103 combine, originally called a Clays. They changed their name in 1963 to Clayson due to the confusion with the class name. In 1964, Sperry New Holland took a majority interest in the company, and it was is now part of the New Holland Case Corporation. These machines were powered by a Ford engine, 6-cylinder. Note here the difference in height of the combines in comparison to the Massey Ferguson. Shortly after 1965, the New Holland Clayson 135 and 133 were introduced. And the next series of combines were the 1500 series. You had the 1530, 1535 and 1540 and 1545. Here we have a very rare M122 combine. This one has an 8-foot cutting table. And these combines had a 4-cylinder engine. These are two very well kept and very well presented machines. It's interesting to note that Massey Ferguson took over the Dronningburg factory in the 1980s, where their later Massey Ferguson models were produced from. Class began manufacturing combines in the 1930s. The Class Super became available from 1953, and those were the third generation of Class combines. By 1958, hydraulic controls were introduced, which meant you didn't need the man standing on the back operating the reel and the table. The Class Super and Junior finally went out of production in 1978. Here you see the Class Super with the trusser on the back. These were a form of a low density baler, which basically just tied up loose bundles of straw. This machine had its own engine, but they were also PTO driven. The first Class self-propelled combine was the Hercules, and it was produced in 1953. The men on the baggy off platform had a good view of the countryside, while the men on the reel seemed to be under pressure. The owner of this machine, seen driving the Major here, also has a couple more Class combines in his collection. It's great to see these machines being preserved. Here we have a new baler arriving on the farm. It's a Massey Ferguson 128 baler. Manufactured in the early 70s, the 128 was the largest capacity baler of its type in 1975. It had a very wide pickup to cater for the wide straw swaths after the larger combines. The 124 had a narrower pickup but was basically the same machine. The 120, which was the smaller baler in the series, was a lower capacity baler. Here we are baling with the 168 and collecting with a Cook's bale collector. The flat 8 collectors were popular in the 1970s and into the 80s when small bales were being made. We're using a Brown's flat 8 bale grab for stacking the bales. These grabs were also made by Cook's in the UK, as well as Brown's in the UK, and in Ireland they were made by Tenco. Here we decided to add a little bit of extra colour with a Ford 4000 horsepower. Here we have a Mingley self-propelled SF300. It's developing 150 horsepower. It's got a 6-cylinder Deutz engine, and it's got the running gear of a class combine. It was basically an engine on the chassis of the combine attached to the reverse mounted SH40N harvester. Here we have a reaper and binder in action. The Massey Ferguson 8130, manufactured from 1995 to 1999, developing 155 horsepower. And here, towing the trailer, we've got a John Deere 2850. Again, these tractors were manufactured from 1986 to 1994, and this tractor is 86 horsepower. A little Ford 3000 there. These animals are wondering what is going on. These trailers were manufactured by Lee Trailers in Waterford in Ireland, and they were timber floor and sides using latch timber. There we see the Ford 5000. The 5000 was Ford's option to compete against the Massey Ferguson 188. This was during the early 1970s. We have another John Deere model here pushing up the silage using a push-off buck rake, which of course were very popular in the 1970s, 80s and into the 90s. And in some places they're still used today. Here we have the class combine and the trusser. As you can see, quite a lot of activity goes on during our harvest days. Here we have the Massey Ferguson 2640. These tractors were manufactured from 1980 to 1985. The 2620 was the two-wheel drive version of this tractor, and the 2640 is towing a Mingley 25 forage harvester. The Mercedes 1987 1500 were manufactured from 1980 to 1987, and they developed 150 horsepower. Here we see the 65 with the Massey Ferguson 740 trailed inline harvester. These harvesters could also be driven by the Massey Ferguson 35. Here we can see the articulation of the Massey Ferguson 1200. It had a very tight turning circle. It's seen here towing the Tarp double chop harvester, towing a forage trailer, these trailers had timber sides and steel floor. Massey Ferguson 148 with a Kuhn 3-meter rake. Cane trailers manufactured in Northern Ireland, all steel. This is one of 250 overtime tractors that Harry Ferguson sold in Ireland back before 1920. This tractor was sold in 1915. And Harry Ferguson is reputed to have gone out to each and every one of the farms in Ireland where these tractors had been sold. The engine was transverse on these tractors. And there you have the badge to prove that it was sold by Harry Ferguson himself. The Ford Super Dexter, developing 44 horsepower, was manufactured from 1962 to 64 and has superseded the Dexter, which developed 32 horsepower. The Massey Ferguson 900 muck spreader, which was manufactured by Marston's in the UK for Massey. This David Brown tractor seen rotavating here was also branded Case. Case merged with David Brown in 1972. And in the early 1980s, the David Brown name was dropped in favour of Case International. The parent company, Tinco, also owned International Harvester in the UK. The Massey 675. Ploughing with a 3/4 Friskus plough. I hope that's not smoke. This young man is getting in a bit of practice for competition ploughing. And this man was considered a good ploughman back between 50 and 60 years ago. And he still is good today. Here we see the 135 carting a load of silage. This is a more modern Mercedes tractor. With the Mingley harvester again. The Ford 8210, developing 115 horsepower These tractors were manufactured between 1982 and 1991. Here we have the massive Harris 701 baler. These balers were manufactured in the early 1950s. They were driven by their own engine, in this case a standard petrol TVO engine. They were affectionately known as the Nodding Donkey. Here you see the fan on the knotters, the pickup and the packer system could be operated individually. It's being towed here by a nicely restored Ferguson narrow tractor. The lighting kit on the front of this tractor was called the Cyclops lighting kit. Here again we have another overtime tractor owned by the same man, and it's good to see his grandson taking such an interest in these tractors. He is currently building one. The overtime tractor were actually called the Waterloo Boy tractor in America. They were manufactured as Waterloo Boy tractors, but they were painted in yellow wheels and a green body in America, but for the British market they were painted grey, orange and green, different green. John Deere took over the Waterloo Boy factory in the early 1900s, and it's interesting to note that the John Deere tractors are painted in the yellow and green to this day. Harry Ferguson got his inspiration for the linkage on the tractor from demonstrating these tractors around the country. He had sold 250 of them in Ireland, and he went around to each and every one of the customers to demonstrate how these tractors should work. Here we have the 148 raking in some grass. Massey 399 with a Massey Ferguson mower. This mower would have been branded Lely a few years ago. Now Agco owned the Lely company, and the mowers are branded Massey Ferguson. This Massey 399 is 105 horsepower. Here we're back with the County again, and the Tullow Engineering silage harvester, which was manufactured in County Carlow in Ireland back in the 1980s. The Ford 4000 was Ford's answer to Massey's 165 back in the 1960s. Unfortunately, the engines weren't great in these tractors, and they were changed to the Force tractors in 1968 with a better engine.